Hi, my name's Cordy, and you're a new Helix owner. Now, you might be wondering what you should do next, and personally, I think it's a good idea to read the manual, but possibly you might not do that. But I wanted to make a video about what I would do, my first kind of things that I would try with the Helix if I was a new user. So you'll end up on this screen, I believe, Factory 1, here. Probably on US double norm, and you'll see this. So I guess we could just talk about what this is. You've got a signal path up here and a signal path down here. The Helix can do 2 or actually 4 signal paths in and out and process them independently, but a lot of the presets will be on one line like this. So you could play through these and just experiment with what the factory presets sound like. And I think that would be a good idea. One thing that I will advise you to do just before some of this, basically some of these buttons, you'll see you want to experiment with what they do. So this one brings up a menu, this little line one here, and if you go to this right hand side here, you get global settings. Some of the preferences on Footswitches are what I like to change, so I would run it in preset mode, Stomp and Snap. And what that means is that across this bottom row here you'll have snapshots, and across this row here you'll have stomp boxes, and we'll explain some of what that does later on, but that's how I like to run things. So snapshots along the bottom and then stomp boxes along the top. Should we just get into it with a new preset? So if you press in this preset button, you can get to other set lists. If you go back across with this here, okay, and then I'll go to user 3 because I don't think I've used any of these before, and you have all these new presets that have never been used, and press the preset button and you get to here. So here's essentially your signal chain where you can do what you like. What works quite well, I think, is if you just build presets that are something like the real world. So if you use your joystick and get to a point, you're moving along this point. If you press it in, you bring up your model list. So you'll see you've got a whole list of stuff, so distortion, compressors, EQs, modulation, delay, reverb, pitch, synth, filter, wah, amps, impulse responses, all sorts of stuff. So in the initial, what I'd advise you to do is maybe bring up an amp and a cab that you like. So I put amp and a cab you can load together, and there's sort of like, it makes an auto assignment on which cab you use. Later on you might want to try using an amp and then putting a cab as well, or an impulse response after it. I'll just show you the difference in a sec. So let's just pull up an amp that you might like the sound of. So you'll see you've got a lot of choice. Some of these amps are based on real things, and some of them are based on ideal things or Line 6 creations. This one, the Derailed Ingrid, I really like. This is based on a Trainwreck Express. So press in this button and you've now brought up the amp. So you see along here you've got parameters. So drive, for instance, I'll take that down to, I don't know, about 2.2. The bass I'm going to take down to 5. Obviously you can experiment with this as much as you like, and then if you press page across here you can get to other parameters. So I'm going to turn the sag up, but you'll learn over time what these parameters do. Obviously the first page basically corresponds to what you'll see on a real amp. This channel volume is kind of important, as that just changes the volume of the actual amp without changing the way that it responds and stuff, whereas the master does things like a master volume where you drive the power amp section, so that does actually change the tonal character of the amp. Some of these other parameters and stuff you want to get familiar with later on, and there's a bright switch at the end of this one, which is unusual. So if you press across from here, so we then get to the cab. So if you turn the little wheel on this cab section, you can choose different cabs to use with this particular amp. So I'm going to use the 2x12 double C12N, and then these parameters you can change what kind of mic you're using, the distance, and by default I like to kind of put this to 1 inch away. And then high cuts and low cuts. So these are really useful tone shaping things that are in the cab block itself. And early reflections turns some kind of room sound in, kind of. Those are the parameters that you've got within the amp and cab block. Now you can also, as I say, split these separately, so you can have an amp and then a cab if you wanted to do it that way. You can delete these by pressing Action and Clear Block. You can also move them by pressing Action and moving across or down, back up. See, if you move down, you create this split, and so you can have an A-B split within the signal path, which is useful. You can press on it to change it to other things if you go across the menu and back across, so you can come out of that amp menu into a delay and reverb or whatever. So reverb, I'm going to select stereo because it's going after the amp. Glitz is a really nice one. Set the mix a bit lower. Move this to the end here. I like to put reverb at the end of the signal chain. Generally that's how I do things in the real world, and so that works quite nicely in the Helix world as well. Should we add a delay? Stereo. Cosmos Echo, which is based on the Roland Space Echo. Again, another really cool little piece of kit. And then you'll get the sense for how this stuff works. Distortion, generally you're going to want to put that ahead of the amp. So air apparent is a printed tone. So we can put that there, and you'll notice that things like the printed tone have some of the features that the real pedals might have. So you've got clipping options, you've got presence, you've got voltage options if you press across in menus and stuff. You can bypass these with the bypass button. Obviously you wouldn't necessarily want a dry pedal on all the time. Another thing you can do, if you hold these foot switches, you can assign these blocks to these foot switches. So I'll just show you that again. If you highlight the block that you want and then hold on to the foot switch, you basically bring up that option, so you can merge and change the types of foot switching. So I won't explain that here, that's something you might want to look into later on, but I'll just show you this. If I go to the delay, I can press OK. I've assigned that to here, Cosmos Echo, but I can also assign the glitz to that same button. So I just merge that with the existing function of that button. So now it says that you've got multiples, and you can cycle through what's actually on that foot switch by touching it. And you see you bypass just by pressing them. And that's why I like to have that up here. Okay, other things you might want to know then. So we've got this thing called snapshot mode. So what is that? So if you've ever had an amp that does stuff, you'll know that when you turn the gain up, things change. You know, sometimes if you were taking a solo, you might think, that'd be nice if I had more mids for that. Well, the thing about snapshots is you can do that. So here I'm on snapshot 1. I'm going to press to snapshot 2. I don't know if you can see that now, but two things will change. So you'll notice that it goes red at the bottom, whichever snapshot you're on, but also in this top right hand corner of the screen you'll get these snapshots. So if I'm in snapshot 2, I'm going to say that this is going to be my lead preset. So you might want to think about this before you start to change whatever you're going to change. So maybe think snapshot 3 might be my clean preset, snapshot 2 might be my lead preset, and snapshot 1 might be a rhythm preset. So snapshot 1, I'm going to have my delay and reverb off. Snapshot 2, I want it on, and then snapshot 3, I also want it on. Snapshot 2, I want this drive on as well. So now snapshot 1 remembers the assignments here, snapshot 2 does, and so does 3. So we can press save, and let's just save this preset. So I'm going to call this JC start. again, this is the kind of thing that you just start to get more and more an idea for how this stuff works the more time you spend with the Helix. I'm just trying to give you an idea of some of the basics that I think are important to know. You can change which set list it's in here and the destination, all useful stuff. So remember what I said, like maybe you wanted more mids on your solo boost. So this is a really powerful thing actually, which is sort of unique to the Helix. So on our mid control, what you want to do is press this in and start to turn it. Oop. Okay, and you'll see that at the top here it puts these little brackets around it, and what that means is that this now has a snapshot assignment. So I'm going to chuck that all the way up to 9, and when I press snapshot 1 it jumps back to where it originally was. Snapshot 2 it jumps up to 9, and we can do that with as many other parameters as we like. So the drive I'm going to do that with as well. You should press in and start to turn. Okay, now also we can change the assignments on the others and they don't affect the other snapshot assignments. So that's how snapshots work essentially. Really useful, but experiment with trying that with whatever parameters you think you might want to change. You know, you might want to change volume, you might want to change gain, you might want to change the amount of delay, so we could do that. So if I want my snapshot for the solo to have more mix or a higher mix of the delay, I can do that. So I just press it in and start to turn it till I've got it to where I want it, and you'll see that that basically remembers that. So snapshot assignments, super powerful. And I think at this point now, that's about as much stuff as I think is super worth checking out without getting into a manual and stuff. I guess the other thing is you might want to assign your volume pedal to things, so it's worth knowing that. Let me just show you this. If you hold in the mix on your reverb, for example, you can set different controllers to it. So EXP2 at the moment is the actual pedal where it is, the expression pedal over here, and you can set a minimum value and you can set a maximum value. So this same applies to any other parameter that you see here, but that's set now. So you'll see that as I sweep down the volume pedal, you basically get that kind of thing going on. And I think that's again something worth knowing. So you could do that with volume, you could do that with a mix of a reverb, you could do that with a number of parameters. So you could change like the gain, the mids and all that stuff. So you could use that in conjunction with snapshots if you want. I guess actually one other thing that I'll show you is, because this is cool, a looper. So you can have a looper, get a 6-switch looper. So again, I've just added it here. If you hold this button, you can assign it to that block, assign the block to that switch, sorry. Then as you press 6-switch looper, you get to the loop thingy, screen or assignment of buttons here. Press exit, you come off of that. Or I can have a 1-switch looper, and that will just be assigned to this one switch here, and that works basically like a ditto. So that's kind of cool. One other thing, you can set this output here to be through this other path, so you get extra kind of processing power. So you'll notice here that some blocks are grayed out. You can't necessarily do unlimited stuff. The reason is that you've run out of DSP on this chain. So if I wanted to do more stuff, potentially what you might want to do is use another amount of processing. So I can click on this output here, so move to this block and then set to path 2A. You'll notice that it then goes through here. So now I can add other blocks, so I could have more reverb if I wanted, or I don't know, I could have a looper down here, stereo looper, but you basically got double the processing power, and that's kind of the powerful thing about the Helix. You might want to think about this before you start your patch. Maybe you want to have loads of drives before your amp, so maybe your amp would go here, or maybe you want lots of reverbs post, so maybe your amp goes up here, but you want to think about your signal chain and where things go. So hopefully that's sort of a little bit of a primer on what you might want to spend your day doing now that you've got your Helix. I'll just also show you how you can load other people's presets and IRs if you want to, but that was kind of, I think, some stuff that I would have wanted to know on my first day. There's going to be loads of other little bits and pieces, but the cool thing about the Helix community is that there's quite a few people that do kind of YouTube videos on this stuff and are super useful. So Steve Stalacci is one, Jason Sadites is one, Alex Price is another, and maybe if you're into metal, I'd check out Nick Hill as well. He's got some really cool stuff on the Helix. But there's other people on YouTube as well that do stuff with the Helix that I think you might enjoy. So I'll link some of those in the description if you want to check them out. Now I'll just jump over and show you HX Edit. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I come out of outputs 1 and 2. So here, using the TRS, and into this one here. You might want to look in the manual about connecting up your Helix and stuff. In the box you should also have a lead, so I'm going to suggest that you go onto the Line 6 website and go to Downloads and download HX Edit, and that will hopefully enable you to do this next stage. So HX Edit is the software for interacting with your Helix with a computer, as well as downloading and uploading IRs or presets and backing up and updating your Helix. All useful stuff. So you just plug in your USB and go over to your computer and plug it in, and I'll just show you on the screen some other bits and pieces. Okay, so you're in HX Edit here, and so you'll see you've got set lists, but you've also got this little section here which says IRs, and you'll notice that here you've got an opportunity to load basically IRs from all over the place. So I've got a few different things here, but you essentially just right click it and then import, and that's the way that works. And so you then go in and find your IR that you're looking for and just load it. So I know I've got one here. So here I've got an IR that I use quite a bit, and so if you just select it and then press open, you'll see it's pointed here. The way you can load these is like you would a cab. So you just basically click down here or wherever, and you then select whichever the slot was. So IR select 17. Okay, so now that matches up with that IR that we wanted, and you can set high cuts and low cuts as you would like. The other thing you can do is presets. So here, so you could export this one that you've made here to wherever you like. So I have a whole little folder of these, or you can import as well. So import, so if you've just saved someone else's presets from custom tone or something, you go here and then you can load an existing preset from someone else, and you'll see what they've made. So this is a preset that I made at another time. Some people will have little tips and tricks that they like to use. Some people might use a compressor at the end of the chain or an EQ at the end of the chain. There's no real rules to all this stuff, and my personal take is that keeping things simple and making choices that you like the sound of, I think, is an easy way to get your head around this stuff. Oh, worth knowing, in this first block you've got a gate as well, so you can turn on and off a gate. Check that out. Anyway, thank you for stopping by. Hopefully some of that stuff was useful if you've just got your Helix. I'll catch you in another video soon. Cheers.